United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item is the adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
We need a second. All those in favor? Public comments? None? Okay. The next item is a presentation from Sunset Elementary.
Okay, so I'm going to give full disclosure and let you know that I'm here to brag a little bit on our school. We received some pretty awesome recognitions last spring that we're here to share with you, share about today. The first recognition.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? Since
Yeah.
you're all standing there, you're going to wear your masks. Please speak really loudly.
Okay,
Can we give them one of
teacher voice.
Yeah, teacher voice.
There you go. Take this voice out.
But keep it separate from the speaker.
Oh, thank you.
Could have brought one from school.
You don't need to hold this.
All
Whoa.
right, point it that way.
Can I hold the award for you?
I want to read from it.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, so the first award is from KSDE, and I brought a copy of last year's award. We're still looking for the one that was awarded to us in the spring, but it's called the Challenge Award of Merit, and it says awarded to Sunset Elementary. It's awarded as a certificate of merit for outstanding achievement and uncommon accomplishment based on Kansas math and reading assessment results and other qualifying factors. And so we have received that award the last 2 years, and when I looked up the definition on KSDE as to how it's awarded,
you don't need to hold the speaker part, Kathy.
I'm going to put on my office. Says the Challenge Award recognizes schools for outstanding achievements and uncommon accomplishments based on Kansas math and reading assessment results and other qualifying factors, specifically the sample size, ethnicity, and social economic status of those taking the test. We also now include graduation rates when calculating high school results and chronic absenteeism rates for the middle and elementary schools. The steps used to identify Challenge Award nominees are as follows. And it talks about the statistical model that's used to calculate state assessment scores. And schools have to, let's see, there has to be a certain percentage of free or reduced lunch at that population also. So only schools that have a total percentage of free and reduced price lunch students above the state average of 45.7% are eligible for this recognition. And I know that Sunset, in 2019, our chronic absenteeism rate, we had cut it back to under 5%, which we're really, really proud of. So that is the first award we're here to talk about tonight. You guys mind if I pull this down?
No, you're fine.
It's really hard to talk through it. All right, so the second award is, I'd like to introduce Sarah Friesen-Gore, and she is our social worker at Sunset Elementary. And Sarah Friesen-Gore is the Kansas Social Worker of the Year. We are very, very proud of. So I'm going to read to you the nomination, part of the nomination essay that we submitted, and let her tell you. Then I'll let her tell you a little bit about a recent virtual conference that she attended that she would have loved to have been able to go to in person. So we're proud to nominate Sarah Friesen-Gore as Social Worker of the Year for the Kansas School Social Workers Association. Sarah brings an extensive experience base in the field of mental health, years of experience in educational settings, and on-the-ground work in building resilience and healing trauma brains. Sarah, and we talk about her experience. She has experience both in the private and the public sector. She also has experience in family preservation services and alcohol and drug abuse prevention. Her work in the educational setting has included school-based therapy, school social work in pre-K through 8th grade settings, as well as a therapeutic day school setting. Sarah joined the Sunset Elementary family in 2006 and has helped to transform our school into an amazing trauma-responsive environment that helps our students to flourish every day. Sarah has been an integral part of the cultural shift at Sunset, and her work touches the life of all students, both gen ed and special eds alike. Implementations that Sarah has assisted with include, and this is a pretty long list, but I think it's important that you hear this. So see, these are some of the initiatives that Sarah's been part of. Implementation of pieces of restorative justice, zones of regulation. Sarah does lessons in the classroom, learning about the brain. She the students on how the brain works, establishing and maintaining a calming room or our peace place. She's a part of the team that meets monthly. Teaching students and staff about the brain, teaching staff and students about brain chemistry, and securing water bottles for all students. Creating a resilience notebook, which is a resource for social emotional curriculum. Organizing family engagement nights at our school. She's involved in inviting community partners to attend family engagement nights, such as DCF, YMCA, food pantry, etc. Establishing calm corners in every room in our school. Monthly social emotional lessons in classrooms. Creating processing forms that match our building expectations. Creating a flow chart for behaviors and teacher responses. She helps to establish and implement behavior and social emotional plans and supports for individual students. She's assisted in establishing our school mascot, our school mission statement. We love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And she's assisted in establishing our school mantra. I am safe, I am loved, I have people. And she helps to coordinate and grow the PD activities, resources, and activities necessary to continue our growth as a trauma-responsive school. Sarah is also a member of our building behavior team, which includes our school psychologist, principal, and categorical teacher. This team meets weekly to discuss how to best meet the needs of not only the students at Sunset, but is also called upon to offer support suggestions to other schools and programs. What we like to refer to as the Sunset Dream Team consists of our categorical teacher and Sarah. This team has developed a state-recognized program that hosts frequent visitors. They collaboratively have built and continue to grow opportunities for social skill growth, functional skills, project-based learning, and overall programming that is second to none. Sarah has grown positive and supportive relationships with the students in this program and is looked to in moments of crisis for her calm, non-judgmental, and nurturing nature. Sarah carries this love, guidance, and support throughout the school community. All students, parents, and staff benefit from her knowledge and her unconditional love. Sarah is a lifeline for our families and provides support, guidance, and serves as a contact for connecting our families with needed resources. Our school psychologist shared that she often asks our students, who is your most trusted and safe person at our school? The answer is a resounding, "Hi, Mrs. Friesen-Gore, of course." Sarah Friesen-Gore.
Thank you. So it doesn't squeal. Thank you very much. It's been an odd year to get an award. It feels like it's the award that just keeps on giving during COVID, to be funny. I was supposed to be able to attend a conference actually this coming week in Michigan with, you know how it works in schools, with airfare and lodging all paid for, but obviously that's not happening. I hope to be able to benefit from that next year because that's a pretty exciting thing to be able to be with school social workers from all across the Midwest to learn together. The main thing I want to say is when Debbie read that list, that is this team and the rest of Sunset all together. So I work with an incredible team, and as a social worker, to be in a building that wants to focus so much on trauma responsive and trauma informed is an amazing thing. That's what I do. That's what I love. That's what my passion is there, and the whole team is there, and we do it together. So it is a huge honor. The kids in the spring before we went on shutdown and all went remote, And these guys told me that they had nominated me. The kids sang our school song from The Greatest Showman, A Million Dreams. And I'm telling you, that's all I really needed, because that was quite an amazing experience to have. Yeah, I cried hard in front of almost 300 kids and all our staff. And that, to be honest, that was an award enough just to experience that. So thank you. It's a privilege to work for this district. And I want to say to all of you, social work has grown in the time that I have been in this district, and thank you. Thank you for seeing that that's an important piece in our schools, and for believing in us and continuing to grow that program. So, thank you.
And now I'm going to let Rana and Nicole share about another honor that we received from Smoky Hill Educational Service Center, and they worked on the application for us. And they're the fancy ones, so they have the technology.
And we won't go through all of this because a lot of it was highlighted in what Sarah did, so.
Yes, so it'll be quick. The award that we applied for was the Shipping School Culture Award. And, thank you. And that award just recognizes schools and districts for social, emotional, character development. And there was two types of applications. They had the short application and the long one. And once we got to writing, we thought, oh no, this is going to take the long application. And so we have a lot to say about it. We began our journey in 2017, and we've continued it this year, especially with COVID.
It's been a little more difficult this year because some of the things that we had implemented are a little bit harder when you have to social distance, but our goal was to lessen the impact behavior has on students' education and life by giving them tools to regulate their own behavior. And we have two PISA goals that we were working off of: planning for safe learning environment, and then the student involvement and empowerment.
Our mission statement that we came together with Debbie and Sarah was, you are loved and there's nothing you can do about it. Our mission statement before was, well, what's our mission statement? And the question was, well, we know it has something to do with academics, of course, and we're going to do the best we can. Well, this sums it all up. If you love someone, you're going to do the best you can for them.
And our mantra, we say it every morning, and the kids can tell you, I am safe, I am loved, and I have people every day.
And some of the morning things we do, every morning Debbie's voice comes over the intercom, and one of the favorite ones is it's just mindfulness, getting the kids to calm down from the morning. I'm a mom, I know, get up, get up, get up, but you know, just having the kids calm down and get ready for school. So one of their favorites is hot chocolate, where they pretend they're holding hot chocolate, and they smell it to get that air in and then breathe it out and cool off their hot chocolate. And Debbie's really good at that, just getting everybody just to calm and think.
We do the zones of regulation every day. Kids check in several times a day. That way they get in touch with their feelings, how they're feeling, and be able to identify that for us to help them throughout their day.
And then in every room was mentioned we have calm corners. Well, this year, to have kids using the same space wasn't available. So our building worked really hard, and we got bags, so every kid has a calm corner right at their desk. They can get something calming out of their corner bag.
We have Peace Place. It's a room equipped with various activities for kids to go to help regulate themselves. There are some kids who go there on a regular basis throughout the day, and then there are some who have unscheduled visits that just need a little calming activity away from the rest of the classroom throughout the day.
And then we have a resilience notebook, and that's just a reference for teachers. Just, you know, if you come across something that's happening and you don't know what to do, you pull out to address this. And every staff meeting we come up and we've been giving presentations to each other about here's something that's worked for me in my classroom. And we put it in our notebooks as a resource that we can use.
One of my favorite things that we started last year was Hide Time, and it's a cross grade level family group, and we would meet every week for about 30 minutes, and we just would do some activities together, and I loved it because I had connections with my former kindergarten students and all of that. And of course with COVID this year, we had to put that on the back burner, but this one was very near and dear to my heart. So
We're lucky to have a lot of community involvement within churches that support us. They specifically have bought water bottles for every student. They've got masks for the staff. Any supplies that we need, we say, hey Debbie, and Debbie asks, and they're just like, yes, what else can we do is their question. So.
They've been greeters at our school. They eat breakfast and lunch with kids. We've been so blessed with their involvement in our school. Again, COVID, yay, COVID. So,
Not this year, but they're helping us in other ways.
they are. They're still involved.
Yes. To sum it all up, fourth grade class, do you want to explain this, Nikki?
Well, last year, Ms. Garr, who's a fourth grade teacher at the time, this is a poem that her class wrote, and it just sums up Sunset. Are you going to read it? Sunset, it tastes like honeycombs, it sounds like students learning, it smells like sharpened pencils, it looks like my home away from home, it makes me feel safe and loved. So when I told the kids we were going to put it on our webpage, they thought they were rock stars.
That's all we have. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the consent agenda.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through Z.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? 6-0.
Was that second by Andy?
Yes, ma'am. Old business, school security grant process update.
Dr. Decker, do you have supplied you all with some information? Would you like to give them a little bit of a rundown?
I absolutely would. Just give me 1 second here to figure out this clock here. But just so, just in the general information is I went ahead and created a committee internally within the school district to handle the layout and the rollout of what's going to be the school security grant. So we're very excited about it. But it's made up of myself, the superintendent, as well as some folks from other leadership roles in the district, such as facilities, with a primary objective of first getting secure access for each one of our school district buildings, each one of our schools first, and then moving on to some secondary kind of wish list things that we would like to do if finances allow. But first and foremost, what we've been able to do is come up with a timeline for what that would look like. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it up real quick to share with you all, just so you can kind of see. But the basic idea would be that we're working up through the holidays here, just kind of finalizing plans, then going into the spring and getting our bids out, or taking in bids from various vendors that could be our partners on this, selecting the bids around spring break, and then implementing and actually having the work done as soon as school lets out, maybe even a little sooner, and then going ahead and having it all ready to go for the start of school of next year. So, I can hold that up real quick. Sorry about that, guys, I just got a little props. It's coming. It's on my screen. There it is, all right. So you can see here we are in September where we started, and the tentative kind of meeting dates that we have set up and what each major accomplishment is we're trying to do every month. And so what I plan on doing is periodically, as Fred suggests, is go ahead and updating you on where we are in the process. So where we are in the process right now is we feel like we've got a pretty solid plan for implementation, but I will be filling in the details later, especially when you see on the screen those parts where it says team meeting, TBD. We're anticipating that there's going to be a lot of moving parts, and so we've already set the meeting dates so that we know that we at least have time to handle those and address those issues. But yes, we're hoping that by August 6th, the install work is complete. Hopefully, we'll take a tour to the building to some of you board members around the 10th so you can see what's actually happened. And then on September 7th, we're all going to get together and kind of do a rehash of how everything went, what we learned, and wrap up the project. So that is the building security grant process for right now. Do you guys have any questions that I can answer? Okay. Thank you.
Looks great, thank you.
The next item is the COVID update. Okay. I sent, updated the gating numbers for the week, for the upcoming week. And maybe if you could pull those up, that would be great in that COVID update.
There you go.
All right, when you look at, obviously, we've had some issues in Harvey County over the course of the last week. You know, we were sitting green looking pretty good, and towards the end of last week, the wheel started to fall off a little bit. Normally what you'll see from me is like in that first chart where you have, especially the Friday to the Saturday, in terms of the number of data for the trend, all right? We have a total of 62 new cases. Below that, we actually had some more data, so I essentially went from Sunday to Monday. And if you look at that in terms of that one additional day, that gave us 9 additional cases. So, you know, it really has kind of, obviously the Bethel cluster out there hasn't helped our numbers any, but that's not something that we can control. We just have to deal with in terms of how those numbers are included in our counts. So when you look at the trend, that puts us actually in red. If you want to scroll down a little further, we got an increase of 34 from Friday to Saturday and 35 from the Sunday to the Monday. When you look at the disease spread from the KDHE, I don't like this chart too much because it's still pretty far behind. October 4th was the most recent data on that trend chart. But if you go look in terms of that spread, there's been a 2-week increase in terms of that on the KDHE site. So that does put us in a red in terms of that trend. It is a definite increase, okay? The percent positive from the state site, I pulled that this afternoon. We had a 4.89%, if you want to scroll down if you can, David. And that's it. 4.89% for last week, and this past week, it was 19.323, and that averages at 10.74, which that puts us in orange. For student and staff attendance, we're in that yellow range. For student attendance, we're still in that green range. Kind of green or yellow, depends upon how much weight you want to give the staff piece. The staff piece is still pretty close to that 3% if we were to use the same type of gating numbers, which we essentially have over the course of the last few weeks. You look at the other two-week cumulative incident rate. That's at 280.6, so that puts us in a red. And that's the number of cases per 1,000 when you need the math on that. Then you look at the hospital capacity, the dashboard still says green. When you look at the ICU beds, if you go to the KDHE site, I actually included that information this time, because I keep hearing that the area hospitals are getting closer to being at capacity with some of this stuff, and I don't know if that's just a rumor or whatever, but when you look at that, the total ICU beds available, and this is in the South Central region that you can pull up the KDHE site, 366. That's the total number of beds, and there's 121 of those available. So that still would be considered green. So our criteria, when you look at the 3 criteria range, 1 red, 1 orange, or 1 green, yellow, either one of those, whether you pick green or yellow, puts us in the orange status for the following week. When you look at the 5 criteria, we don't have a chart that expands that out, but 2 red, 1 orange, 1 green, and 1 green, yellow. Total number of active cases, when I pulled out at 12:55 this afternoon, was 56. Last week, the number of active cases that I pulled in that evening was 21. So we have risen quite a bit. So there's a lot of concern in the community. As you guys have probably heard, I know we're getting emails, quite a few emails, and I do appreciate people emailing us. I am concerned. When I talked with Lynette a little bit this afternoon, there were 32 of the Bethel cases are attributed to the Harvey County numbers, is what she said. So if you were to just take away those 32, I really struggle taking those numbers away, and the reason I do, those kids are in the community. I mean, they didn't just get here, they've been here for a while, and they are in the community. So we have Bethel kids on our campuses doing some observations and stuff at different times. So they are here. So, but that 32 is a part of that particular cluster right there. We did have one USB 373 recovery. So I didn't ask if it were a student or a staff member, but we were told that. So that is the data piece. I am concerned about, you know, I don't want the wheels to continue to fall off. We didn't have any cases for a long time. If you remember, we had one case really before school started technically. So I'm not even counting that in the number that we have. So right now we've got like 8 cases. If I don't count that one, it's 9 if I do. But those 8 cases have come within the last week and a half. We had none really prior to that time. So I do also want to point out that Karen Lehman and her staff have just worked their tails off, and they need to be thanked for all the work that they put in. She's put in countless hours trying to do contact tracing and help the Harvey County Health Department with that. So, and that was one thing when Matt said too, to tell Karen she's a rock star. So I wanted to make sure to say that publicly too. So I would almost, on my recommendation, obviously for the next 2 weeks, beginning next Monday, is to go into orange mode, as the numbers indicate. I'd almost like to even consider looking at a hybrid beginning Thursday just to reduce the exposure. That's not really a part of our protocol, what we've done in the past, but we've not had that big of a change where we've gone 2 levels in a week's time. So just open for discussion, I suppose.
Any questions?
I've got one. I was just wondering if it's been documented at all that there's been any transmission within the school,
No.
in our school? Okay.
There's been no, and that's a good point, because, and even the quarantine cases at this point, there has been no positive cases from those that are home. So there's no spread right now in the school.
That's definitely good to put out there for people that are having concerns about sending their kid to school. Is right now what we are doing is working.
Yes.
So,
And maybe our friends up north could come down here and teach them some things. You know, we'd even do it for free. And I mean, I said that just at the same time, they have to, this is the second outbreak that they've had. And when they have outbreaks, it affects our kids. And I hope they're taking it serious up there. And maybe we shouldn't be sending our kids out there if to our observation. You said something.
They're coming. They're coming.
Well, then maybe we need to do it the other way, because that's a little bit problematic if now twice they've had outbreaks. So they
One thing that's not unusual, just what it is, you know, doing the contact tracing, the staff are doing a good job of keeping their lists of kids and things like that. But, you know, one case, for example, resulted in 42 exclusions or quarantines. We're not technically supposed to call it quarantine, but one case accounted for 42 of those.
So, Fred, can you explain, so that I have a better understanding, just clarification on contact tracing, how that works?
Whenever we are aware of a positive case, then Karen Lehman works with the administrator and then the staff members that might be involved, and they go through all those lists of kids that those students, that particular contact, if it's a student or staff member, might have been in close contact with for 10 minutes at any one given point in time. Okay, so, and then they start making calls based upon them. They validate those lists, start making calls, and they work with the Harvey County Health Department. They've been pretty swamped, and so Karen and the other staff members have been making a lot of those calls and telling them that the Harvey County Health Department will be in contact with them, you know, about the specific situation. So it takes, you know, for example, I got a call, I don't know, Caleb and I both got called at the same time Friday evening at about 6 o'clock or 5:30, and I know that Karen was there for a couple of hours working through that list to make sure that we didn't leave anybody off.
I just had someone ask me how that process works.
It's tedious.
Specifically, so.
Very tedious. And we've got all of the cases documented in terms of the quarantine numbers and stuff per building. I think right now we're like at 126 today, which is quite a bit more than it was a week and a half ago.
Fred, when they do that, how far back do they go? Like, I know we've had some kids that tested positive, but they had already been out of school for some time. How far back in time do we go to see who was around that kid when he was in school?
I want to say, and I'm going to screw this up, Luke, it's in our operation stuff, but it's within like 2 days of the onset of symptoms or something, and that's not, I'm sure that's wrong. You know what I mean? They have to remember that, I don't, but it's within our operation stuff, and Jane probably can tell me.
You're correct.
Yeah, I just didn't want to say it too much, so it's within 2 days, so like they were here today, within 2, and they had the onset of symptoms, it would have been two days prior to that, is where they'll try to validate that list. That's why it's so hard to do, that's why, you know, keeping the list of kids and who's in contact with whom, and not mixing those groups is so important, so important.
And when we're doing the quarantine or exclusion, whatever you want to call it, does that count towards absenteeism?
It does not count towards the absenteeism. If the kid is at home, they're working remotely, so we are not counting that towards the absenteeism. If they are, and the same thing with staff, okay? If they are ill, obviously not able to participate, that's the one thing nice about having that remote mode, is that we don't count them absent. If we did count them absent, our absenteeism rate would obviously be much higher, but they are doing the work. They are not, especially since none of these kids have turned into a case. No, they are not ill. They're just having to do this to stop the spread. Great questions.
Claire, can you just remind me where the majority of our cases are? What levels we're talking about? Grade levels or building levels?
No. No, I mean, they're at the elementary, they're at the high school, they're at the middle school. We've had cases in every level, not every building, but every level. We've had them at the high school, we've had them at the 2 middle schools, and some elementary schools.
Are they primarily at the high school?
I want to say probably the majority of the cases are more, there are more cases at the high school than they are at the other levels. For example, we had our first case, I believe, our first case today at Santa Fe.
What did you say the total was since the beginning?
8 if we don't count the one that was before school, 9 if we do.
So eight or nine total?
8 or 9 total, yeah. And those 8 have been within the last week and a half or so, 2 weeks. So,
Are we in agreement that orange starting the 19th?
Is that Monday?
The next 2 weeks, the 19th and 30th?
I would like to do 1 week. Right now, I think when we see these numbers changing so much, so quickly, I think we need to revisit it more often. I would feel more comfortable keeping a closer eye on this, seeing which direction we're gonna go. I personally would like to do the orange for 1 week, and then come back, reevaluate, look at our numbers, see what we're dealing with there. I wouldn't say we should take out the current Bethel cases out of our numbers and discount them by any means, because they are in our community. So I think we do need to include those right now, obviously. But we do know that those are going to come down. If I were to see 50 new cases in a week throughout the community with no connection, that would have more weight one way or another than a large cluster for me personally. Once again, I'm not saying discount those numbers now, but I would like to revisit it in a week and see where we're at then. But yes, I am for orange for next week.
And as you said something there, and that may not be a bad idea, because if this continues to go upward, theoretically, we could be right.
we could be in red, yeah.
So maybe that's not a bad idea to look at this in a week. So we stay on top of it.
The only pushback I see is the planning part for the families, but I think to
And
keep
that's
our
been our
eyes and
concern.
on the forefront, it's just something we're gonna have to deal with. So I agree with you, Orange, for a week, and then revisit. I think that's probably the best solution for it right now with the anxieties that are out there.
If we do that next week, one thing to keep in mind, we don't want to make any sort of a decision until late afternoon and put it in the evening on that Monday, because those numbers aren't updated until at least 12:30.
Are we gonna look into the Bethel, that comes, the Bethel students or people that are coming into our district?
I had discussed that with Karen this past week, and the past weekend, when her and I talked like Thursday or Friday of last week. In her discussions with Toby, you know, there's not that many kids involved in that particular program. There's only a few spots, and he said he wouldn't be alarmed with that at this time. So, I mean, I'm not that concerned about that, just based upon the information from Toby at this point, from the health department.
Okay. But in regards to our county numbers, that's a big number for those 40 cases or whatever they had or cluster. So we're not concerned
With them bringing it onto our campus in terms of transmitting it. I don't really, I've just taken the advice from the Harvey County Health Department not to be too concerned at this point with that. So, I mean, if you guys want me to do that, I have no problem doing that.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily, it's not anything permanent, but at least for a week, so we can get a handle on it.
Sure, sure.
I don't see.
That's an easy,
Well, if we're orange,
that's an easy.
we're not even gonna have, well, we'll have some hybrid.
They'll be hybrid at the elementary
But all
and
orange.
remote totally at the high school.
So there's not gonna be a lot for them to see in it.
Not too much at the secondary level, for sure.
So give her a real learn. Get it on with it.
According to Bethel, when they are in the orange mode, students will be asked to stay on campus except for essential workers and accreditation programs with nursing, social work, and teacher education functions. Even when they're in the orange, they're limiting their students leaving. When we're in orange, we're tightening up who's coming on campus. So common sense would almost say, people are saying, stay close, stay in your groups, we're not mixing. That if we're in these levels, that perhaps we don't need to mix.
That's not a problem. You can notify, no problem at all. And the reason I said think about yellow for the Thursday, Friday, once again, that affects 7 through 12. And it would be, just a way to minimize the number of kids that are on campus. It would only be that 7 through 12, so there's not a daycare fee in terms of that for Thursday, and Friday.
So we wanna set up a meeting for next week and then make a motion.
So,
It just needs to be like after 1 o'clock, like the meeting.
I would prefer it being even later than that to make sure that I don't notice, because, like I said.
What, you're not gonna sit there and just wait?
I am not going to do that.
maybe we can do it in the evening?
Well, I was gonna say,
It's
we're
our
meeting
normal
time, it's just gonna take us less than 10
Oh, it'll
minutes.
take us just a few.
Yeah.
If we were to go, you know, anytime after 3, I do have a 1 o'clock meeting. If we were to go anytime after 3, I'm good, so.
And we can do virtual meeting.
Oh, absolutely, we can do it virtually, like we
In the evening?
Yes.
And that will give you plenty of time to put the.
That'll give you plenty of time.
Is that okay with everybody?
The 7 o'clock is normal board meeting time, virtual meeting, okay.
on the 19th.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, we'll do this.
I move to approve the orange mode of learning beginning October 19th through October 23rd, based upon the data presented today.
Second.
Moving second, any further discussion? All those in favor? And then, well, I don't know.
What about Thursday and
Thursday
Friday?
and Friday? What are your thoughts on that?
And we're just waiting to do that to give parents enough time to plan.
Yes, you know, when I look at that 7 through 12, those kids, I don't feel as bad about a parent having to plan for a 7 through 12 grader to be at home on those 2 days to reduce those numbers. I don't like the idea of all of our 1,000 elementary parents.
No,
having to
I
take this
understand.
one.
So, are you saying that our K-6 would still be in buildings?
That's what we do with yellow, yeah, it'd still be there.
Oh, okay, I got you.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
It would be like.
Yeah, so it doesn't affect, so we're
I thought you
reducing
were
numbers.
saying everybody moved to hybrid.
And when you look at some of those numbers in the county, the numbers, the higher numbers are like between 10 and 19 year range too, so.
So how would that, who would we be sending home on Thursday and Friday?
It would just be half of those 7 through 12 would be learning from home.
It would be
So the
Friday
normal
day.
kids that are home on Thursday, Friday, the kids that are normally home Thursday, Friday during hybrid would be home.
Would be home.
Okay.
And it's just, and I know it'd be better to do it today and tomorrow, but we just don't, we can't do that to our parents, I don't think, or our teachers or our kids. just to reduce the exposure.
Do you want a motion to move to yellow?
I would like to, for Thursday and Friday, to move to yellow. That gives them that planning time and reducing the numbers that are there.
I move to approve the yellow mode of learning for October 15th and 16th.
Moving and second, any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor? 6-0.
One question that it doesn't have to do with the motion. So Orange we will be grouping with the Y for the program that we approved. So contacting parents about that. I had the question, is transportation available for K-6 students when we're in Orange to the Y?
I don't believe we were arranging transportation. We were going to get food service. We were going to get food out there, but not transportation.
I didn't think so either, but I got a lot of information, so I can't remember. So we will communicate that with K-6 parents tomorrow,
Yes.
as soon as possible.
As soon as we can.
For those options.
It will be fine.
Alright, so we have, if you look on the screen there, I went and shared, I'm gonna have to alter this a little bit, because we changed the dates. This was set up to be a 2-week, and now we're going to a 1 week. But Sam and I, and we're working on this, we haven't quite gotten it approved by our boss yet, so give us a little bit to do that. But essentially, we will be sending out this email to parents that are going to be affected by this, that's going to lay out how one enrolls their child into the YMCA program, which we're calling Winning Edge. And you can see, it does list what the hours are going to be, it does list, in meeting with you all from the last time we talked about it, what the fees are going to be at $45 per week. But then if the family is receiving any type of food assistance from the state of Kansas, which is kind of what we've used as our determinant of need, then that price drops to $20. And so it takes it more than half down. As well as, it doesn't say, and it does say that we don't provide transportation, but it does provide a lot of other information. And then the rest of it is just kind of the information we're gathering from them. But essentially what you all would need to know is that on the very first day that that student comes to the YMCA, we'll have staff there that are able to take their payment and help them through determining if they meet the qualifications for that reduced fee as well.
So I have one question.
Sure.
So when our little kids are hybrid, we're still providing latches, correct?
Yes.
So since this ends at 3:30, do we have the resources to allow these kids to go to Latchkey if their parents work till 5 o'clock?
We haven't talked about that, have we?
Yeah, we'd have to.
Well, I had not
No.
thought about it until I saw that it ended at 3:30, and I'm thinking,
It-
well, their
it
parents are at
ended
work.
at-
That was to get them to Latchkey.
To get them to
Latchkey.
Latchkey. So we thought about it in terms of, yes, we wanted them to be able to go to Latchkey, because Latchkey's already a service we're providing. But no, starting tomorrow morning, we'll be talking with transportation to see what our options are. So we have not gone down that path.
I think that's important.
I need to.
So I have another piece that, thankfully somebody texted, they asked if we're monitoring Facebook comments. No, we're not on Facebook up here. But I guess my understanding is there are quite a few comments, some from staff who are wondering if we could do hybrid A one day and hybrid B another day. So Thursday hybrid A, Friday hybrid B. So I at least want to throw that out there so that they can hear input about that.
I'm gonna be real serious, I don't care how they do it, I mean, really, we just have to be consistent hybrid A and hybrid B. It can't be Chisholm does hybrid A, and the high school does hybrid B on the same day.
That's how we did it at the beginning of the year, and it would make more sense to do A on Thursday and B on Friday.
Does it, from an attendance perspective and the student information system, is that gonna make things all wonky, or you guys do it?
No, it'll be better for teachers.
Yeah, I said we go for it, we can do
That might
that.
help them transition a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit better. So-
And I tell you, I hate to even ask for this, but if we wouldn't have made a 2-level jump, I almost felt like, we put it in Orange almost on Wednesday, just based upon the numbers, but I also know that's just totally unfair to parents and stuff to get it right, so. If they can do A and B on Thursday, Friday, go for it.
Can you don't need a motion?
No, we can do that, that's just, we can administer that.
The big thing is just gonna be getting that word out so that people know who's who.
We'll get it out.
Yeah.
So we're saying we're gonna do hybrid A on Thursday and hybrid B on Friday?
That's, yes.
That's, okay.
A on Thursday, B on Friday, right?
Yeah, and the key is they have to know they're remote on the other day. Some kids think that means they're off on the other day.
But we will have those students.
Yeah, off, yeah, remote doesn't mean off. Remote means you're off site.
What is Wednesday gonna be?
Wednesday will be just a normal day, just like tomorrow will be.
So we'll have two normal days.
We'll have two
where
normal
teachers
days,
can
two
tell their
normal days.
students, hey, you're coming this day, you're not coming that day. So that'll help out with communication, hopefully.
Good stuff.
Just so we make it clear to everybody.
Oh, yeah, and we know it's not gonna be totally clear,
Yes.
you know, but it's, like I said, I hate making a change like this with no turnaround time, but when you look at the number of cases and the trend, I'd rather stop it as quickly as we can now. The only other thing I really have for you as it relates to this particular, unless you guys have any other questions with this, is, you know, our teachers and all of our staff are working tremendously hard right now during all of this time. And when you think about, we had a discussion on with the administrative team this past Thursday at our meeting. And we've got remote learners K through 6, and then we've got those in the classroom that are handling not only the kids in the classroom, but any kid that might be in quarantine, or maybe even be a case that's able to be able to participate. It's taking a tremendous amount of time for those folks, because they're essentially almost teaching 2 classes at the same time. At the 7-12 level, it's a little bit different model, but they're having the same, if not more, issues associated with that, because when we've had kids come back from the remote setting into those other classrooms, so we have larger numbers in some cases than what we originally had, and also they are teaching, especially at the high school level, there's a lot of those blended courses where they're teaching 5 or 6 kids at the same time remotely that they're teaching on site. So what I'm trying to do here is just plant a seed that we may come to you in the next couple of weeks with some options about considering how we can make it to where my teachers aren't spending 5 or 6 hours outside of the regular day trying to catch up with these kids. Another concern too that I have is that with these remote learners, we're losing some of them. They're not checking in. I mean, they're checked out of school. They think, as Caleb said a few minutes ago, the remote means I don't have to do the work. And so we may have to have some interventions that can take place during some of that time that we might bring to you that allow some more targeted staff. So I just really want to make sure that everybody understands it's not like normal school as it was. These folks are really, you know, the stress associated with the pandemic aside, the things that they're trying to do for kids is really pretty fantastic. And Megan is going to show you in a second here, like an example of what some of the K through 6 teachers are doing. And I know you've all gotten emails, and I got some of those same emails, and I really feel for parents that are in that situation of like a remote learner, but these teachers have really evolved over the course of the last several weeks to make this a better situation. And so I'll let Megan just kind of show you kind of some of the things they're doing to make sure kids are being successful academically and have remote development. Although I'll say it's not easy. It's not easy for the parents either. I know that, and you guys know that too.
Do you have an estimate of a number of how many of our remote students have not been engaged so far?
At the high school, you know, I want to say it's around 30%. I think that's what we have talked about. Of those that are on remote.
That are completely unengaged, that's probably fair.
So we can't let this go on because it's halfway in the semester essentially right now.
So I'm just gonna make a kind of off the cuff comment here. You know, I know we get a lot of pushback for wanting to have our kids in the buildings because of what's going on, but this is why. Because we know how hard it is to be a remote learner, and it is not for every student. And we are taking as many precautions as we can in our buildings, but we know that is how they learn the best, is when they are sitting in our buildings as much as possible. And I know the conditions around us don't always allow for that, but we really, that is our #1 priority, is to make sure they can learn. And if they don't engage remotely, we're just kind of flounder, and they do too.
And I know teachers are doing everything possible. They're exhausting themselves trying to connect with these students, so it's not a lack of districts staff reaching out. I've heard from multiple teachers who, and I know them personally, I trust that they're doing everything possible to get to these kids. And there's just nothing coming back from the other side.
Well, and that just goes along to the added stress for everyone, especially the teachers that are, you know, trying to engage and nothing is coming back from students, at the high school level.
And this has future year implications.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you have kids who aren't, you know, participating and not engaging, then come next year and the year after, they're going to be behind. And so I give it to these teachers and all the staff, all of them are working, like you said, working their tails off.
They are. They're working tremendously hard.
You ready?
You betcha.
Okay. So Fred had just asked me to come and just show a little bit what's going on with K-6 remote. The first thing is I think that you need to be aware of is that teachers are meeting 4 times a day with students. There is always a morning check-in that usually happens. And you know what? I'm a visual person. Would you like to see a daily schedule? Would that be helpful? Or, yep, okay. Teachers are checking in at least, or 4 times a day, sometimes more than that, with students. We don't want to lose kids, and that's what I think it comes down to. So here's the kindergarten one. It was actually just at the top. They are meeting for about 30 minutes in the morning, and they're doing social emotional learning, checking in. How are you doing? Do you have food? Like basic questions, right? Did you sleep last night? Are you safe? They're also doing calendar time, and I have to brag a little bit about kindergarten. I watched last week, they have been observing caterpillars, and the caterpillars actually emerged during, or the butterflies emerged during their morning meeting. And it was adorable because there were like 30 little kiddos like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. So we're starting to see times in remote learning. I think there's 2 parts of remote learning. There's the science behind learning, right? Getting some of those hard things figured out. How much learning is appropriate? Does your technology work? Can you get online? Do your parents know how to help you, right? Like there's the science that goes behind it. And then there's kind of the art part. Like, what can we do to engage students and make this the very best opportunity that we can get? And where those 2 intersect is where the magic in school happens. And finally, last week, it's been a hard journey, right? But I started seeing, kind of like the butterfly emerging, I started seeing hints of this happening throughout the grade levels. So for me, this is exciting. So just like here, they have got a 30-minute Google Meet in the morning to check in. They do calendar time, they count. They have a 90-minute ELA time. And this also gets, during that time, there's check-in times and there's small groups. So based on what kids need, they'll meet in small groups and do that. There will be a math time, 45 minutes of that, 20 minutes of it will be recorded. If they can meet, so the state says that you have to have 1 time of impactful, be present. After that, it's either recorded or they can join in live. We push that kids join live, right? There's something about being there to be able to ask the question. Then they go back, they do specials. So this is just a quick check-in, right? There's usually 2 check-ins in the morning, 2 check-ins in the afternoon, and there's work. So here is a kind of what the kids see, what the teachers are planning. Sorry, I had logged into this and must have logged myself out. Good job. What grade level do you want to see? Do you have a preference? Do you want to see the littles? Do you want to, does it matter? Okay, I'll just do 3rd grade. 3rd grade? Lovely, 3rd grade, okay. So here comes the creepy part, and I'm sorry. I'm gonna actually become that person. So Jessica Weimer is one of the remote teachers at Northridge, and we have gone through over the last, with all of the teachers, and really tried to make it user-friendly. So we've added in pictures, it's button-based, so what kids will do, like today, they'll go to Monday, and here's their assignments. they'll click this in the morning. It takes them directly to Google Meet, where they type it in. They have their reading. If they miss the live reading, it's LinkedIn. Here's their math. Here's LinkedIn.
And that's the recorded lesson. When you say it's LinkedIn, that's the recorded that they have, correct?
Yes, correct. So it really just goes through, they just have to go through their page. And then she also has put in, are you done for the day, to make sure there's a checklist that you've gone through. Now, I am not going to lie to you that it has not always looked like this, right? This has been painful to get to this point. I've cried, teachers have cried, parents have cried, right? But I'm really happy with where we're at right now, that I feel like we're starting to get it user-friendly and also impactful for students. What questions do you have? Yeah, Andy.
I was thinking of rockstar emojis.
The one at the front? So Jessica did. How awesome is that? We had,
They all do their own.
yeah, they're called Bitmoji classrooms.
Yeah.
And they are, well, every single remote teacher has one right now. We've tried to make it as student-friendly as possible by making it colorful. I mean, at some point, yes, you're gonna have to have an adult helping you, right? Reading is hard, especially for KN1, but we've tried to make it as user-friendly as we possibly can.
And this isn't perfect, but man, it's pretty darn good. I mean, there are issues, but they have just, when I sat down, when Megan showed me this last week, it just made me feel great about what's happening. I know it's hard for parents because they're not in that role of having to facilitate, or used to being in that role of having to facilitate that, but as that remote learner, I mean, part of that responsibility, we can't be there. This is the only way that we can be. And they are meeting live. It's not just all recorded lessons necessarily. So, I said it's not perfect, but man, compared to what it was, it's amazing. It really is. I want to commend all the teachers and Megan and all those folks for doing all the work they have, because they didn't know what Canvas was, I don't believe, until the first part of August, right?
Well, 2 months ago, teachers didn't know what Canvas was, and they didn't know they were being remote teachers, right? And to think that we're at this point, it's been a hard process, but I feel like we're moving forward. As we're hearing feedback from parents, we're sitting down, we're problem solving. Sheila's helped a whole lot with this too, and we're just trying to be like, how can we make this the very, very best situation we can have for our students?
So is it similar for 5th and 6th grade as well?
It is. Would you like to, I can show you 5th and 6th if you would like. Where we're gonna run into and it's not really problems. So I'm emulating people, but it doesn't emulate Summit. So you can see their page, but I can't actually get into Summit, it's the limitations of the.
You'll have to have a credential to get into this.
Yeah. So this is she's 5th grade math. The contact. So they have their special schedule, all of that. Their daily check-in is here. They do this every morning. They go through you guys heard about zones earlier. They do a morning check-in with that. And then they have, this is the point where I can't go any farther. It links into their Summit, and then they go to Summit from here. So it's kind of the landing page. So it looks a little different for 5, 6, just because of Summit. I mean, most of their learning is coming from Summit, but they have got a landing page for them to get started. I'm trying to see if I've missed anything.
So how do they transition from this to Summit?
Yeah, they just have to, for them, it's just, there's a login over here that says Summit, and they just click Summit.
So then it's just the Summit?
Yeah, it's the Summit platform. I mean, it would seem, it's more of just, why would we, if Summit already has everything laid out for teachers, it seems repetitive to put it in Canvas just to have it in Canvas, right, when they can just fill in login. And this is their schedule. Theirs looks a little different than elementary, but it's still, they still have 4 times of a day of meeting with teachers in person. Well, virtually in person, right?
Great stuff.
It's the teachers, right? Give it to the teachers.
Innovation is amazing as fast as we've been turning and taking the feedback, and as hard as that is sometimes when you've got so much to do, so.
And I joked with the teachers that they really have, instead of classes of 30, they really have 60, because you have to train the parents, right? So you're training the parents, which is an obstacle in itself, and the kids. So I know we have more work to do, but I'm really proud of where we've come.
So I have kids that are in 3 different grade levels in 3 different buildings. So I get to see this from a lot of different angles. And I started off with one kiddo in hybrid. Let me tell you, that first few days where you're looking at Canvas and modules and syllabus, where do we go, where is it at, and then over to Summit. It was tough, but this is the reason why I'm so glad we've had our younger kids in the building so much, because now they understand. They've done it in a classroom with their teacher, they've walked through it. And I know it's difficult for our K1 kiddos who can't read these things. That's very, very hard. But for my 3rd grader, he knows his way in and out because he's been doing it in class. So I'm so grateful our kids have been in a building, and we knew that unfortunately Orange is going to come sometime.
Right.
So we've had a few weeks to hopefully guide them in a classroom to where now maybe hopefully they'll feel more confident at home. And my kids tell me how to run it. It's amazing. I just stand back and watch. They're doing great.
Right, that was kind of, we expected from teachers that they're getting elementary school kids on at least once a week. We're hoping for more, but knowing that we've had this gift of time, like the last 6 weeks is a gift that we can train them on technology, on devices, on how to use Canvas. So just like this, where there's kind of a quick turnaround, kids will have a foundation to move forward.
Good stuff.
Okay, the next item is the approval of the PVC local agreement.
Okay, you folks have gotten a lot of information from the PBC, from the city, from the rec commission. I sent you a little memo about a week ago or so. The folks from the city and the PBC are here to, and the rec commission are here to answer any questions you guys might have. Just kind of as a side, I'm the new guy, so I'm going to play the new guy card for another 2 or 3 years. But at least for the next 20 minutes or 15 minutes or however long it takes. It is an unusual arrangement to have the PBC, as you guys all know more about that than I do. Coming from a school where we didn't have anything like this, I'll tell you the bang for our buck is pretty decent. When I look at the 6.119 mills that the USD 373 Rec Commission levies in terms of what they're operating besides the benefits piece, and you compare that to area schools in terms of the USD Rec Commission, it too is not bad for the services we get. And I don't know if you have any questions for me. I'll go off of any that you ask and add my 2 cents. And if there's at any point you want to ask any of the folks from the city or the Rec Commission or PBC, please do.
I have lots of questions.
We don't have lots of answers.
I'm trying to unpack this thing, and I, to be quite frank with you guys, and I don't want to waste time for you guys as well, I appreciate everybody being here, and I've worked with you guys on several different platforms in several different ways, and I really appreciate what you do and how you do it. For me personally, I don't feel comfortable quite yet, as I've made phone calls and I've read some stuff, and I'm trying to put some history together that I'm not aware of. I'm probably the newest person here. so I beat you a little bit.
You live in town longer though. You live in town.
Yeah, a little bit. And so, for me, it's just about understanding, and so I don't know if all those questions can be answered without killing your time, for me at least. And again, I've had some good conversations, and I've got a lot more pieces than I had before, but I don't understand the budget, the flow, the cash flow. I know those things are probably available to me. I haven't started looking until literally this morning, because I knew this was coming. I've had people want to sit down and meet with me, so it's not like the effort wasn't there. And we were back and forth like with Tim, but I didn't get to sit down with him and actually get through this. So for me to make a decision today, I just wouldn't feel good for me. I don't know what the rest of you guys feel like. I don't know what questions you guys have. But there's so many little pieces that I don't understand with the whole, I didn't even realize this unit existed, this node of how we're doing this. And I think it's great. I just don't understand it enough to make a decision like where we're at today. Reason being, we're $1.3 billion behind right now as a state, okay? Over 50% of our budget is K-12 with the states. And I'm worried about a lot of other things and projections, and I need to get with you, as we've talked about, with understanding some things that I don't know, because I am expecting to hit somewhere. And so I got that on my mind on top of all these other little pieces. So as I look at that as a whole, for me personally, I just have a hard time making a decision right now. And a lot of that is on me. So I'm not sure if you guys want to move through with things, but that's where I will be as we move through this process, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. So I just leave my part there.
So are you telling us you're abstaining from the vote? There's a smile under here. You can't see it. Yeah.
I see it in eyes.
Squinty eyes.
I know you.
Honestly, my biggest issue is the taxing portion of it. I mean, you've got two not good choices to choose from. We either pass on the mill to the taxpayers, and in my opinion, sayonara to any future bond, because we just taxed them more without their consent. They didn't have to vote on it, anything like that. Or we absorb it and, have fun to the boards, for the next 20 years. Now you have that in your budget. And like Andy said, if our budget gets cut, and I don't even think it's an if, when our budget gets cut, what's gonna take the hit so that we can make that payment? And, I remember having this discussion 2 years ago, I believe, in 2018, and I am pretty positive that there was not board majority in favor of moving forward, paying for a pool.
Do you guys want to have some discussion, and then can I help answer questions as we go, or what would you all like?
I mean, I sat with the board, Matt was here, I think we were the only one.
Carol Sue's
in the back. Oh, yeah, Carol Sue's back there, and that was my impression. And then I feel like it just kind of all got planned outside of any discussion with the school board. I mean, we had one joint meeting last October, was that it, last October, where we met at the Meridian Center?
Mm-hmm.
But there was no like, how are you guys feeling about this now? It just kind of got put on our plates, like, okay, well, we're doing this, so here, pay for it. And it's a little off-putting to me, honestly.
Well, I think one way to look at it, again, I know I don't go with this, so just take advice for what it is. But I think even if you take the finances on the shop for a little bit, but the biggest thing from my perspective that does really affect money, which is going to help improve this district, make it healthier, it's going to be an increasing enrollment, increasing attracting students, and increasing attracting families to the community. And so one thing that I want you to consider while it is your decision is looking at that long-term aspect. I understand, well, we don't know what's going to come, when it's going to come. It's going to be a gamble. But the part of that gamble as well is saying, but what are we doing? How are we investing in a community that makes this a place where families are going to want to relocate, a place where families are going to want to raise their kids, and a place where ultimately we can grow that tax base. There's that old adage, it takes money to make money. This is definitely one of those situations. Now, it's not as clean cut as you may like it to be, but it effectively is a question of, will we invest in the community to get a long-term investment at the end of it? So far, the interlocal's been pretty good for us in terms of what we pay out versus what we receive in terms of benefits. If you just look at athletics, you could say that. If you look at some other aspects of the community, it hasn't been a bad deal. But ultimately, I cringe a little bit because it's going to be a hard decision. Because it is a, hey, are we going to have to tax people? Yes, maybe. Are we going to have to absorb it ourselves? Yes, maybe. But if we don't do these things, then we know that it's going to be harder to attract those families to get those improvements down the road. So again, just
So my only,
As we're going through this, I know I'm the old guy here. I have had such a hard time hearing you.
Yeah.
So let's just, gentlemen's agreement that when we're talking, please pull your mask off because I just can't. I'm sorry. I know it's not COVID wise, but I can't hear. And if I'm not hearing the discussion, it doesn't do me any good. So anyway, it's not your fault. But I just want everybody here to be on the same table here, and so I can hear.
I appreciate Dr. Deckers. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I just want to say one thing. In regards to exactly what you're talking about, making that investment, but we ran 2 bonds in the last 4 years that, under the same pitch, that investing in our buildings and fixing them and making it a place people really want to go to school and want to work and all of that. And our taxpayers twice told us no, very loudly. And so I get it. I would love to have all these amenities, but I am also looking out for people who told us when they got to vote, no, they do not want a tax increase.
So I thought about the bonds as well, thinking about the PVC and raising our mill, 0.2 mils, from 0.8 to 1. And, you know, one of the things that people that didn't vote for the bond said was how expensive it was. And even if you just voted yes to question 1, that was about 7.5 mils. This is 0.2. And I keep thinking about, so the very first freshman football game we had this year, we went to Andover Central, and we got this beautiful brand new stadium out there. And the other fellow parents, the JV football parents, the freshman football parents, were just talking about, man, this is so nice. And how nice it would be if Newton could have a win like that, to have an investment in their community. And I'm telling you, there are good people in this town. They're loyal to Newton, but they could go anywhere they want. They could go to a place that invests in the community. And we're talking 0.2 mils here versus a bond that just question 1 was 7.44, I want to say. I mean, it's $40,000, I think, for 0.2 mils. And I realize, don't raise my taxes 1 red cent, but this is an investment, and I believe 100% that we would get a return on investment. I think if we give, you know, the good folks of Newton, just give them something to be proud of here, that we got this, that we're improving the city, that there's a reason to stay here. Don't take your kids to the Derby water park, you know, stay here. Spend your money at Newton businesses, okay? Buy a house in Newton because we've got nice things here. This is, I mean, there's a lot of people in Newton that would say, I mean, yes, the bond was too expensive, but this is 0.2 mils, and this would be something very good for Newton families, for our Newton students that are going to school in our buildings. I mean, they deserve an upgrade, and I mean, I could not support it more. I mean, those facility upgrades will do us good. I believe 100%.
I appreciate everybody's comments. I just, maybe for some context, oh, excuse me.
I just have one question for you, and then I'll have other comments. I didn't see it anywhere in the paperwork. Do you have numbers for the revenue for the pool over the past few years, handful of years, ballpark idea?
Let me ask Mr. Basque, he's the director of the Rec Commission. So the city owns the pool and the Rec Commission operates the pool. I heard it stuff.
Of course, not counting this year because we didn't get open until later in the season. We usually bring in about between $50,000 and $60,000 a year, depending on the weather conditions and things like that. We are expecting quite a bit. If we get a new water park, we're expecting quite a bit more with that. Usually they say 25% increase in revenue with new water parks and stuff.
So is that 50 or 60 after you take care of all the lifeguards and all the?
Oh, no, that's just the total revenue. Yeah. 60,000.
Is what comes in. It's not what
About
you're-
60,000 revenue is what we bring in. We lose about $50,000 a year.
After you take care of
We
all
get-
that. And that's not including the
Yeah.
maintenance stuff and all that that we.
Paying lifeguards, not water, we don't pay water, but paying lifeguards, just upkeep and that type of thing. And then the city also pays a little bit towards it as well. So,
And that doesn't include the water costs.
yeah, yeah.
But in general, do public pools make money?
Never.
Never,
And
no,
they're
no,
not intended
no,
to.
and I will tell you, no city makes a profit.
It's a service, it's like the
Yeah.
library,
Yeah.
it's like the pool, it's like a golf course, they would say, with the exception of this year, golf has done incredibly well for us, so we're fortunate in that sense. So, and I absolutely, we all totally appreciate your concerns and hear that resounding voice in the community as well, as far as taxes and the cost of doing business, or the cost of living, whatever that case may be. Mayor Kane is here, and on behalf of our city commission, they heard that loud and clear. We haven't raised our mill levy in 3 years, and we actually, through our financial projections, do not intend to for at least the next 2. So, to Board Member Edwards' point, this is something that you already have built into your budget, the 0.8 mils. We're simply asking to go from 0.8 to 1 full mil, if that makes sense, which is a difference of about $39,000 to $40,000 a year, depending on the overall mill levy and the valuation.
That 0.8 is wrapped up into the USD recognition line, that's what.
Yes, and that is already there. So this is a change of about $39,000 to $40,000 annually to make these changes. And that gives you everything you've got now, which there's a memo, it was in your packet, but I think we put a paper copy just for quick reference there. If you look at the bottom here, from the original PBC agreement in 2004 to now, these are the improvements that have been made with those funds. And there's the amounts there, and it tells us who are the main users and the beneficiaries of those things. So one thing that we do in the PBC, one of its primary purposes was to always make sure that there was really good grade turf at Fisher Field. So again, most of you may know, but Fisher Field actually was owned by the city. It was a WPA project. And that is where Bethel played football until they had their stadium, and where the high school plays football now, and a couple of junior leagues, I understand. And then, so when the PBC came along, what happened was the city deeded the property to the Public Building Commission. It's its own entity, and they own the property so that they can pay to make those improvements. And so one of the things to note on it's the big copy, it's in your memo too, but it's a bigger one, is that, so the turf, you see, gets replaced every 7 to 10 years, and that keeps going, as long as the agreement goes. The current agreement expires in 2024, so be aware of that. This is not just a renewal, but to go forward another 20 years with things like the turf. And the turf is approximately $450,000 to $500,000 per replacement. So it's, by having the partnership that we've had between the 3 entities, we've been able to afford things in this community that none of us could on our own. And if the PBC dissolves, somebody asked me that question the other day, what happens if the PBC isn't there anymore? The facilities revert to the previous ownership. So the football stadium would become the city's again. And right now, the Rec Commission, in partnership with the city and the PBC, does not just the turf, but all of the maintenance and all of the marking of the fields.
The city and the USD each pay $19,000 a year to the NRC, who then maintains those fields, whether it's Fisher or the ball fields that are utilized.
I want to speak to that a little bit once again, look at the new guy park, okay? Where I came from, we had 2 football fields, we had a baseball and a softball field. Just from our leases alone, every year was about $12,500. We got the 0.8 plus another $19,000 that we're paying to access some pretty decent facilities right now, okay? So we're not paying the water bill on watering those baseball and softball fields. We're not saying, I just think of my AD's time or whatever event staff that's not going up there having to set those fields up. That's being done for you. You won't find too many places where you get a better bang for your buck. And I understand the concerns associated with raising the taxes, but I just think of the things that we don't have to do, mowing those fields, fertilizing those fields, all those different upkeep. for the .8 mils and the additional $19,000. That's a pretty good deal just from a fiscal perspective for the return we're getting.
Remember, also in 2024, as she mentioned, if the PVC goes away, all this stuff goes back to the school. I mean, as far as maintaining, taking care of, all that, so that goes away from the NRC back to the school district. So that means the cost of the turf has got to come up with somebody. The cost of maintaining, the cost of supervising Friday night football games, the cost of, just taking care of it. And I'm going to tell you right now, that stadium is going to need upgrades within the next 5 years. There is so much stuff going on. We did some renovations back in 2004, but it's time to redo it again. And as you mentioned, you've got the Endovers, Mays, and Derbies that you compete against. I know the big thing back in 2004 was that's when you guys went into the Art Valley and you guys wanted nice facilities that the other teams were having in. So those things will start deteriorating and start going away too. Press box needs to be replaced. Just things like that need to be done efficiently.
At the bottom of page 2, I've listed for you in bullets multiple items that are going to need to be upgraded over the next 20-year period, actually. The turf replacements every 7 to 10 years. And then all of these other items, like the press box, the stadium locker rooms, floor maintenance, there's painting that has to be done, there's lighting upgrades that are going to have to be done to all the fields, restroom improvements. The Fisher Stadium itself has to be resealed. It's a concrete structure, like Kelly said, that was from a WPA project built in the 1930s. We have to reseal that so it's not leaking inside of the restrooms and the locker rooms that are underneath it. There's fencing upgrades, soccer field upgrades, multiple things that we're expecting that are going to happen in addition to these 2 projects. And that would be paid with that additional 0.2 mil increase.
One thing I also want to bring up, part of the agreement too is we paid school district's portion toward the PVC. So the 0.2, we pick up that, so we have a 0.4 increase. That point, does not affect your guys' actual operation budgets or anything. It goes to it. Yes, we levy through the school district, but it does not affect the school district's budget one single bit.
Except for on paper when the tax.
That's right, yes, that's right, that's correct. We levy through the school district.
The other thing I would like for you to make sure that you are seeing is that along with the dollars that the Public Building Commission is putting into all of these facilities, the city is also putting monies into. On page 4 of your handout here, the recent timeline, we talk about multiple things that the city's been putting dollars into at the ball field facilities. We've improved the sanitary sewer. These are things that people don't think about, but it's our regular business. Sanitary sewer lines, water lines, things like that. We have improved drainage out at Centennial Park. We built a new restroom facility on the south end of the park. We put new parking lots in, and I put dollar amounts to these, and these have come out of the city's costs. I know you mentioned too, how come now we didn't get to give input? Our biggest issue was our pool. We cannot function another year without upgrades. And so the city commission made the decision, okay, are we just gonna do some Band-Aids? And when Band-Aids are expensive, our sand filters were puts. We have held them together for 3 years now, and there's no way. So we were looking at anywhere from 50 to 70,000 to put into sand filters. And if you're gonna put that kind of money into it, then you start looking at, okay, this is gonna go next, this is gonna go next. So should we be looking at just Band-Aids, or should we look at a full improvement project? And the city commission chose to go ahead with a full improvement project. And because we've had grassroots groups of people for swimming pools and ball fields come to multiple community meetings and ask for these improvements, that's why we were looking at doing it through the Public Building Commission, along with all of these other things, because they're all tied together. Recreation ties in, of course, very nicely with education, which is why it ended up in the Public Building Commission round. Yes?
Can you clarify for me, when the board extended the agreement in 2018, what year does that go through now?
And I'm sorry, this is Chris Town, he's the city attorney, who is, he keeps real whole agreements.
Sure. And I could just speak to that 2018 agreement. It was a good faith intention. It was never executed to extend the agreement, and it still expires in 2024. So for any interlocal agreement, it has to be approved by the Attorney General to be effective. This agreement was not. We see it as a non-binding signal of intent, and the ultimate decision now coming before all the entities.
When I look at our board notes, because I looked this information up from that meeting from a couple years ago, I sat on the other side of the table,
Sure.
so I had a different perspective. It looks like there was a motion to approve the extension of the cooperative agreement between the city, the rec, and our district to extend the PDC as amended, and that passed 7-0. So why, what happened between then and now?
Sure. Well, the agreement speaks for itself, and that's included as an exhibit in terms of the agreement that's before you. So what the minutes reflect, I would say that it's not an extension.
So we approved our side to extend it. Did the city and rec approve the extension?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, maybe just for a point of clarification, in the 2018 agreement, there was some non-binding language that said when the time came and we had all the costs associated, like the actual cost determined for the pool or the ball field and what those improvements actually were going to be, we would come back and make that ask with a specific dollar figure and the extension of the agreement. So the 2018, there's a statement in there, I believe, says something like in good faith.
Right.
When the time comes, we would approach everybody again and consider extending the agreement and adapting that mill levy from the 0.8 to the 1.
So did they extend it in 2018 as it was written at that time, not including the 0.2 mill increase?
No, we're calling the 2018 document an extension, but I think that's a misnomer. I think it's the 2018 agreement, which again, that's included as an exhibit just to kind of show the chain in terms of when this started in 04, and then the amendment in, I think, 06, and then 18, which again, a lot of non-binding language like Kelly referred to. And I think that's, this agreement, the interlocal that's before you right now, is based on that 2018 agreement to make that binding. And that's what the city is putting forward.
So, Joni, maybe you can help me out. Maybe I'm just very tired. I'm seeing that there was a motion and a 7-0 vote from the board to extend it for 20 more years.
I would have to go back and look at it closer. I don't recall from my memory.
I could see how it was seen as an extension at that point, but I guess, and I would have to look at it as well, but what you would adopt at that meeting would have been that exhibit that's included in the interlocal that's before you.
It is September 10th of 2018.
It's included. The interlocal agreement is included in our board docs today.
Or 2044
Right.
is what I'm seeing in what you guys approved in 2018.
The 2018 one is included in our.
Yes, and that was the one that had the language that said in good faith, we would agree that we would do these things when the time came, and now the time has come. The PBC agreement is set to expire in 2024. We have the specific cost determined, therefore we're bringing that thing to the floor.
And you'll see that it's not signed by the PBC or the Attorney General. And really it doesn't matter.
So was it just not submitted to the Attorney General? Was that?
Well, it wasn't signed by the PBC either, but I would say that it doesn't serve to extend the agreement either way. It has very soft language in terms of the limit.
I just want to ask a legal question. Why
Sure.
did you do it?
I don't know. I can't speak to that. I don't know why it didn't come before the PBC, but I would still stand for the fact that the legal effect of the language didn't get us there. If you read the language, it's all non-binding intent to look at. So it doesn't solve our problem if it was approved by the AG, I would stand. It's a signal of intent, is my position on it for the city.
I mean, the extension is pretty clear language. I mean, it says the term of the 2004 interlock agreement is hereby extended for an additional 20 years from its currently scheduled termination date.
You're right. You're right. In the whereas clause.
Now, therefore, is what it's listed in.
Right. I guess my point on that is that it still has the non-binding language in 3C, that all of these things that are being planned in this intent, it mentions the swimming pool and the ball fields. So I did misspeak on that. It does say that it extends it. However, it still has that non-binding language of we're looking at these things and we'll come back.
So when the previous board voted their approval from the school district side to extend for 20 more years through 2044, it never went any farther than that with the PBC as a whole?
It was approved by the city, the district, and the NRC. It was not approved by the PBC, and as far as I know, it was not sent to the AG's office.
So why did it stop if all three entities approved it?
I don't have the answer to that question.
Who knows? I mean, all three entities are here. So that's a question I would have too.
Sure.
Why wasn't it approved if all this work was done?
Well, and again, to your point, yeah, I don't have that history in terms of why it didn't go to the PBC or the AG, but I would still say that as drafted, there is still work to be done in terms of a commitment. And I don't know that it being adopted at that time solves the problem or the issue, the policy issue that's before you guys right now.
My understanding was that the extension was approved, not including the mill increase, so that we had already agreed to continue on through 2044, which in my mind is 44 years, because I'm thinking it's 2000 for some reason. But we've extended through 2044. So my understanding was that was done by a previous board and the other entities 2 years ago. So now I was under the assumption that we were looking at amending that, adding a 0.2 mil increase potentially, and continuing the same expiration date. I am really struggling with why all three entities 2 years ago approved this and nothing was done.
And I don't have an answer for you on the procedure. But I agree with what you're saying in terms of that was the agreement that was adopted. The AG does not have a record of it being approved or considered.
So someone dropped the ball, essentially, because all three entities did their part, and then nothing went on from there, correct?
I'm happy to look further and get back to it.
Thank you,
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it can tell for context on the screen here, I think it's what you were mentioning, Buddy, in section C. It talks about, this is from that 2018, and it says that the city, the district, and the NRC each hereby express to each other, the said parties, their good faith, although non-binding, willingness to consider undertaking the projects, and in their good faith, although non-binding, willingness to go from basically the 0.8 to the 1 mil. So I think the non-binding language is probably where it got hung up, is again, Chris and I were kind of not really, although we were at the city, we weren't involved at this point in time on color code, which we have a little more context for you. But I think our read on it was that because it was non-binding and we agreed, the conversation at all the meetings was when those costs had been more formally determined, and so we could bring you a final dollar figure to show that it fit within the PBC's budget.
And when I went back and looked at the documents from the board side, because that's what I'm elected for, it's just school things, which is a lot in 2020. Looking at some of that information, and then I actually spoke with Carol Sue today just to say, refresh my memory, do I remember this right? Because she was on the other side of this table. When I look at the documents from that, and some plans and information that was laid out, reading through that, there's some statements that really jumped out at me. The district recognizes that the community will benefit from the improvements to the recreational facilities. And speaking as a mom to kids and a community member, yes, these amenities would be fantastic. I won't deny that. However, given the capital improvement needs in the district, the administration does not recommend increasing funding to support facilities that the district does not use for educational or athletic purposes. It goes on to say that projects that are out of the scope of the district mission and programming should be the responsibility of the city and rec commission to fund. So as I read through that today, and I was under the assumption that we had extended through 2044 and that we were just looking at the non-binding portion of raising the 0.2. That's what I thought was on the table tonight. I appreciate the PDC work and everything that's been done for the ball fields and all of those things. I think it's fantastic. We do utilize all of those facilities. I personally have a hang up with the public pool. That's not something that the district does. And my standpoint as a mom and a community member is different than my standpoint as a board member, because I'm here to carry out the board's goals, the district goals, and in all of our board training, everything that we're told comes back to our decisions should be able to come back and relate to our mission statement, our board vision, everything that we do to serve our kids. And I'm not seeing how a public pool, however great it may be for the community, can come back and tie into our mission statement and board vision. So that's where I struggle. Yes, it would be great for community, but at what point does the school district become responsible for funding that as our entity? So tonight has left me with more questions than answers, primarily on, I thought we'd already extended. I thought that the previous board extended as it was written, excluding the non-binding portion of the .2 increase. I definitely support the PVC as it was written, and everything that it's done. I'm really grateful for that. But I'm struggling with the potential additions that were added to it.
I've got just one more comment, just as a matter of discussion. So our appointee to the Newton Rec Board, Tim Marler, reached out to me, just asked me if I had any questions. I'm pretty sure we voted 7-0 to put Tim on the board. Tim is in support of this increase, and I have one question. I said, if somebody look at this from a conservative point of view as far as government spending goes, could they justify this? Would this be a worthwhile investment? He said, yes, I think the improvements we're looking at, .2 mils, is definitely worth it. And again, that was our guide, 7-0, the .2 new track board.
My only concern with that is he's not accountable to the school district's budget. He is our appointee, but we, the 7 of us, we are the ones accountable to our school district budget. And I'm the same way, and I feel like you guys are going on trying to convince us to continue the PVC because it's so great. I agree with you. I want to continue our agreement with the PVC. I also have a hang up with the pool. I mean, we have our own pool to maintain, and it is a money pit, I think, would be an accurate description. So, you know, if we could drop 20 grand into our own pool every year, that would be a super thumbs up. But we can't find the money to do that. So I'm asking us to send $20,000 over to a pool that our district and our students don't directly use, district related. I just have a hard time with that.
Another, to add to that, our summer latchkey program does use the pool. And I think, as far as it's concerned, I mean, we could make an agreement to have some use of the pool. I mean, I'm sure that could be part of it, but.
We already have a pool that we own.
Okay, well then I guess that's where the summer latchkey program for kids.
Summer latchkey kids pay into that. Their parents do pay to use that service already. So when I look at our board vision, the last piece is utilizing assets and resources efficiently and effectively. And since the discussion, and if I remember correctly, in 2018, the board is split on what they personal thoughts on increasing the mill levy for that. But since that conversation, we've had another field bond, and we're currently in a pandemic. So a lot has changed in 2 short years, unfortunately. So that puts even more on the table of the district having our own needs and capital improvements. So I struggle with raising the mill levy for that addition. And then the other option to not increase the mill levy would be to take it out of our funds. And that is an option. But I have a really hard time saying we can take $40,000 a year out of our funds for a public pool, but we can't take that $40,000 and earmark it and save it for something that directly impacts our students in the classroom or directly benefits our staff. So I know that budgets are tight with school districts. They have been for a really long time, so we have to be really mindful. And even though it's a 0.2 and that's significantly smaller than a bond, you've got to watch your pennies because that adds up really fast. So when we talk about really watching our money and doing everything we can to keep it in the classrooms and with our staff, I have a hard time putting it in a facility that we don't even utilize.
I understand that all of your points are valid. I've got 2 things. The one thing goes back to the comment about it's a pool that we won't use. Well, I can guarantee you probably that the city would not create a football field, a turf stadium, to play recreation football, or recreation soccer. So in terms of their commitment as a city, to put in, designate any sort of mill levy doesn't make any sense from that perspective, as you think about that. So it goes back into a little bit being just a community that's trying to help each other out as much as possible. The thing that I'm bothered by more than anything here is that this agreement was signed with the understanding that it was going to be, they would consider it in good faith, but that doesn't mean that stopped the continuation of that from my perspective. And so that's the only thing that I'm upset about in terms of this, where the ball was dropped, and that should have been made clear to everyone prior to tonight.
Well, just a couple things on it. And first, I would say I did misspeak. The extension language is clear on that. I see this as it's a non-binding agreement, though. It hasn't been signed by the Attorney General. It has been provided as an exhibit. It's not anything of it not being fully presented and showing the entire procedural history. What happened after that signing prior to PBC and AG signature, I don't know, but it hasn't been executed.
I understand that. So my point in relation to this is, who says that if they approve this tonight, that won't happen? You know what I mean? It's like that we need to be assured that whatever action has been taken tonight, there's follow through to where we don't have to have this discussion in 3 more years or 4 more years or 10 more years after I'm gone and all these folks are gone, and that next Board of Education and superintendent has to deal with the fact that maybe a ball was dropped that shouldn't have been in terms of making sure the paperwork was filed when it should have been. And maybe I'm incorrect in what I'm saying, but that's my only concern that I have.
We'll have to look at that further. And just in terms of that extension paragraph that is section 1 that you'll see in there, it does say that it will extend it 20 years, but it also says subject to changes and additions to the provisions thereof that are set forth herein. And then again, that's where I go to 3C, that there's the parentheticals about although non-binding. There was still a decision that needed to be made. And I agree with the interpretation that it does say it clearly extended it, all 3 bodies approved it, so we're extended. I understand that. But there is also the punt the ball down in terms of what are we going to do? Are we going to commit to do these things? And that's still the decision that's going to come before you.
Right. So just to your point, sir, though, so you all know what the timeline is here, is that this went to, it came to you first at your September 10th meeting, and then the draft for first read in this part of this discussion, and then it went to the City Commission for their first read at their September 24th meeting, I believe, and then the NRC considered it last Friday afternoon at their board meeting. They went ahead and took action, and they approved it unanimously as presented. The City Commission is before you tonight. The City Commission has it on their agenda for tomorrow night, and the PBC will meet Wednesday evening. Assuming it's approved Wednesday evening, if we all went forward just in this particular path, then it would literally be Chris and my responsibility. Our marching orders from these people is we literally will make sure it gets delivered to the AG's office and executed. So as I said, that's the path forward, whether that's tonight or next month or whatever the case may be, but that's how the ball will continue forward at this point. That's the actual technical trail.
So, my thoughts, I'm really on the fence on this, and I've been a part of this since the PBC started. When I was in the City Commission almost 20 years ago. So I have a long history with this. The PBC itself is fantastic. What it's done for the community and the facilities that it's provided is fantastic. It's hard to believe it's been almost 20 years since it started. It seemed like just yesterday, quite frankly. That just shows you I don't particularly like the mill levy increase, but if there's a way we could to find it in our budget, I could go along with that. I know it's going to be tight. We're going to be. I know the legislature's going to smack us. We know it's coming. But we are getting ball fields. About a third of this money is going for ball fields that our kids are going to use, and those kids are going to feed into our high school program. And that's pieces of the puzzle. So the city does do a lot for us through this. When I sat on the other side, when I was on the City Commission, we saw that we were doing things for the overall good of the community, and I think this is another way to do that. as a school board. So that's my 2 cents. I would support it, but I do want us to get somehow, no matter what happens here tonight as far as the mill levy, we have to get this, whatever we have to do, we need to get this approved as far as continuing, because it needs to keep going. Okay.
This is Mayor Kane, I don't know, I think he wanted to leave it.
I do. I just want to echo the community piece for all of this. I'm the poster child for not wanting to raise taxes and for getting all the pushback that we've received over the last, well, I guess I'm the senior one on the city commission now of almost 8 years, and that's why we haven't, raised the mill levy for the last 2 or 3 years and won't for a couple more, because we heard them loud and clear. The other piece is that the baseball diamonds out at Centennial, how the high school will now be able to play boys and girls together at the same location. And so that's a huge piece of this. And the other thing is that in past conversations publicly, us commissioners have had about this, is that, most school districts, they own their own football field for their high school to play on. And this is kind of an unusual makeup that we have here. But, if you just think about it, and I think city manager kind of outlined the details of what it would cost if you own that football field going forward, and that would be in your budget. And I believe those costs would be more than the additional 0.2 mils that we're asking for you to contribute. That would be more. So just consider that, if that football field ended up back as your property to maintain and take care of long term, those dollars would be more than what we're talking about tonight. But really, this is a community that I think, and the swimming pool, I would, this is just anecdotal, but I would venture to say 70 to 80% of the users there are USD 373 students that use that pool every day. And so it just seems to me that as one who very much values our citizens and how they want to protect their tax dollars, but at the same time, we do want new families to move in and to go to our schools and to use all of our amenities. So just think about that.
Honestly, I would like them to be 2 separate issues, because they are 2 separate issues. Extending the agreement is a separate issue from raising the mill levy. We've got to quit talking about them like they're one and the same. Do you agree?
That's fine.
Okay, maybe well, I feel like this just keeps getting put back on us, like, oh, well, if you don't give us, if you don't put in your 2 mil or your 0.2 mil, then everything comes back to you. Well, no, I think all of us agree that we want to extend the agreement. And I think and I am not completely against the mill increase. I just am not ready to make that decision right now.
Is there a timing issue here?
Yeah.
Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, the pool itself, we cannot open it next spring if we have to open it like it is today. The equipment and the pump room and the sand filter, we have to put new in. And so instead of buying new to put in, like I said earlier, that's why we were wanting to move forward. Now, can the decision be made in a week or in 2 weeks? Yes, but that's kind of going to be our limit, or we're not going to be able to get the whole project built and be able to open it next summer. If we push off, we're going to be getting closer to probably July-ish. Because with pandemic, ordering large equipment and different things that are going to be going in, there is some lag time on that.
So when you say next summer, are you saying summer 2021?
Yes, the summer of 2021.
And I'm not opposed to a pool. If the city would run a bond for a pool, I would vote for it. I would do that for my kids. I do it for our community. I have nothing against investing in our community. I just personally struggle with running it through the school district because our tax base is significantly different than the city's tax base. So, like I said, how I feel personally as a parent and community member, I've owned a home here for 16 years probably. I would absolutely go through the city if they did a bond issue. I would support that 100%. But up here, and I understand we're looking community-wide, I was elected to take care of school dollars, and so my hat as a parent and community member is a tad bit different than my voting job up here. And when I look at the missions that have been put forth to me through our district, through previous boards, and that will be through future boards, I'm struggling with that piece. I definitely want to continue the PBC. I have no issues with the ball fields at Centennial, with Fisher, any of that, but the pool is my hang-up. So I guess I'm questioning as well, is this an all or nothing type of agreement that we're looking at? Because once again, I was under the impression that we had already extended, so I thought we were good to go there.
Yeah, I don't think that it's an all or nothing. I think it's certainly something we have to take back to the NRC, and the city's gonna have to then consider the issue separately. From a funding standpoint, of course, with the 0.8 mils, we could, if you approve to move forward with that, as you have done previously, but we do it in a formal agreement that is, satisfies all the legal questions. We would be able to do turf, but there's all these other things that are not gonna get done as well, because turf prices are gonna be increasing as we move forward. The pool and ball fields are not both gonna be able to be funded with the 0.8. And so the decision will have to be made, how are we gonna fund those?
And I think it became a joint consideration when the original agreement was adopted, and they said, here's the agreement and what we're gonna do, and here's how we're gonna fund it. And so I think that's how the issues became synonymous, again, with the renewal too. That's my guess, again, I'm here.
Because the increase is to pay for maintenance on some of these things moving forward, as we know those prices are increasing, and the pool, the initial and new improvements at the pool, and additional fields at Centennial. So all of those items would be in that mix.
Rick, you got this, I'd have to double check my dates, the, kind of the estimate on the pool, when did you get that? Was it pre-COVID or after COVID?
Great question.
It's a bit of a long and complicated process, because what we are doing is a design build process, because we need to be able to move it quickly in order for us to have a pool open next summer. And initially, what we were working off of are very, very quick estimates that I was able to put together utilizing different vendors and different contractors that were giving us prices, because we had to have some starting point. But then we knew we were going to have to enter into an agreement at some point with a designer that does pools specifically. And so we were right around that $2.2 million mark with all of my estimates, working with multiple different individuals. Then we went through a process where we selected a design build team that included designers and contractors. They would do the process together, and that would make it go quicker. As they are working on the design steps, which is happening now, they're doing that basically free gratis. We have selected the design build team. We went through a selection process, an RFP process. And they're kind of doing that free gratis because we need to have the agreement in place for the actual design work. And as they do go through that process, they're gathering estimates from individual vendors on the different items that we're saying the public has said they want in this process. You had a picture up on the screen, there's a picture in your packet that shows the multiple items. I have a list of the items that would be in that new pool. And as you go through that process, you're bound to have those numbers get adjusted, and those numbers have went up in that process. So the estimate that I did was pre-COVID, but the increase is due to getting way more detailed and looking at exactly what we have at the pool today and knowing what all is going to have to be replaced and what the actual costs are to get those specific improvements in place.
And one other thing on the city commission's agenda tomorrow evening following this item is the approval of the actual, we actually need to sign the contract with those designers tomorrow evening, because it's as a city-owned facility, we have to be the contracting, the signing party. But it has what's called a GMP, the gross maximum price, and it won't exceed whatever that is. So if we got to a point where we exceeded that, we would have to say, well, we either have to increase our budget on the city side or the NRC side or whatever, or we have to take something off because it would exceed the GMP. So that's kind of where we are at in that process, but we had to have a firm number-ish to come to you with and say, here's the GMP where we're at.
And what is that total?
I think it's on your new spreadsheet, the big
Yeah,
one.
the 2.8
2.87.
Yes, and if this is ran through the PBC, then the contract is gonna have to be with the PBC. If it's not, then it's gonna have to be with the city, and the city will have to determine how they're gonna fund the project. Or not.
So I think maybe we do need to take these steps. First thing would be to entertain a motion to extend the agreement. And you want it for 20 years, is that right?
Yes, we went from the agreement, the current agreement ends at the end of 2024, so it would go from now 24 years.
Is that 2044?
Yes.
So that would be maybe the first piece as well.
Sure. An idea, maybe? How about, maybe I can make a motion, and if that motion fails, then we could talk about making an agreement for 2044, remaining at 20.
Sure, right.
So, as presented here, I move to approve the PBC interlocal agreement as presented.
With the .2 million increase.
With the 0.2 mil increase, as we're looking at here.
So the only reason I have issue, and it's not interpretive or any of that stuff, it's just me not understanding all the financial components to the whole thing and all three, and that's just me, that might not be anybody else, but I just wanna know, and I have some hard questions to ask, and I don't wanna do it in the public forum. And it's not ugly, it's just, I just need to know, for me, where are fail safes? If this happens, where does that happen? Where's the risk over here? And there's so much I don't know, that I need to feel good about that, if I put that on my mind. I think, for me, the original setup, for me, is good right now, but if I just had a little bit more time for me to just look at this stuff a little more, I'm all for the community, everybody that knows, I love that we do these things, I love we have this fun, and I love I'm just learning about it, and I'm like a kid again, wow, this is a powerful tool. But where are our boundaries? How do we use it? And how do we respect what we have and not run amok with it? Because I have the boundaries, things that I need for myself. So I wanted to understand if this position, with what I'm doing today, am I doing the best thing for our community? So when I look at somebody and ask for their vote, I can tell them exactly why I said yes, exactly why I moved forward, and articulate it to them with passion, knowing that it's the best thing for all of us as a community. I'm down with that, but right now, I just can't do that 100%. And then I just found another little thing that we're like, oh, there's another little thing there that we need to iron out. And what other little things are there that we need to iron out? And that's okay, it's part of the process. I know, Susan, appreciate everything you do, and time is of essence. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I just need for me to have peace with saying yes, I need a little bit more time. And that's where I'm at.
Can I get some clarification? So when we talk about the 0.2 mils, just our wording, not in our NRCs, is it possible for us year to year or every few years to decide whether we're absorbing that depending on what our budget looks like versus taxing?
Well, it comes from the rec commission. Okay, that 0.2 mils is levied, all of our part of this is levied through the rec commission. So the 6.119 mils that they have for the rec commission mill levy, and then they have the 1.951 mils for the employee benefits and special liability. That 0.8 actually is funneled through that rec commission budget.
I understand that, but we have a portion of it in our budget as well.
No, we only paid $19,000 out of our budget for this. It's levied through the school district, but none of the mill levy is reflected in any of our LOB or general fund.
Right, but I'm saying if we choose to absorb the increase from our personal, our school district.
Well, I'm sure that Mr. Vasquez would be more than happy to not have the 0.2 be reflected on the recognition budget, and we just pay them. Is that what you're saying?
I guess I am not understanding, because I thought that city had a portion, school district had a portion, and then they levied through us for their portion.
Okay, let me so back in 2004, when this was agreed on, The school district came to us and asked if we would levy their portion of it. So we pay the school's portion and our portion to our general budget. This, if you guys choose to approve that tonight, that would continue to be that way. So we would levy 2 mills through our budget to pay both the school's portion and the rec commission's portion. So it's not, won't be through your budget whatsoever. Now, we levy through the school district, okay? So I can't remember what your guys' levy is. So let's say school district has 55 mills and we have 6 mills. And it's a total of 61, but school district's levy, ours doesn't have nothing to do with the school district's levy. Even
So
though
with the increase,
it'll be our increase.
you absorb the additional costs.
Yeah.
It will
Yeah.
not come out of our budget at all.
No.
And no increase to the public.
No, I'm not gonna say that.
It will be an increase in the public.
Yeah, but not to the school, not to the school district's levy.
If that were to happen this year was 6.119 mils for the recreation.
Yeah.
That would be 6.519 mils is what that would be.
Right, that's
Because
correct.
their point 2 and our point 2 is put into that mill.
Yeah, I get that, but I am just not understanding, so the increase is going to get passed on to taxpayers. And, because there was talk in the beginning of, well, we'll absorb it so it doesn't get passed on. So whose budget is that being absorbed into?
What we could do, instead of saying we're gonna pay, we sign a contract for $19,000, we could sign a contract for $59,000 for a 20-year period. You know, I mean, that's one way to say we would commit an additional $40,000 to pay for the ball fields.
And so that money would go to the rec commission, and then they would levy, they would increase theirs point 2, we don't increase ours.
That's an option that.
But
So how would we do
that extra levy that you're talking about going to make it, would be part of your general fund budget. though.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
would be LOB or general fund,
Yeah,
one of those.
that's
two
right.
sources of funding.
That's right.
Yes.
And it's the same setup for the city and the library, and the state of Kansas libraries cannot levy on their behalf, so the library is levied through the city's mill levy. So that is included in the bottom line of our mill levy, but that money passes straight to the library. Does that make sense? So it's a very, it's a not intuitive setup.
I understand it. I don't, maybe I'm not getting out my concern properly. So you're saying we can either take our point 2, that I get it, but it's our responsibility that we funnel through to the rec center, we can either pass it on, let the taxpayers pay the point 2, or we can commit to the $19,000 out of our budget.
19 plus 40.
40.
Right.
We already do 19, so it would be 40.
And I'm kind of history on that. The reason the school district came to us back then to take on their portion of the payment, if I remember correctly, back in those days, the LOB could be challenged, where today I don't believe it can be challenged. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, they could have passed it, raised it a little bit last year, subject to
Okay.
a petition.
So they were concerned about the LOB being challenged, so they didn't want those funds to be ever challenged and go away. So they asked the rec commission to pay those portions.
I think the other piece, if I remember right, Brian and I were both around
Yeah,
then, and
yeah.
Matt was on the first PBC board. The other issue was they wanted to be able to utilize the district boundaries, the
That's right.
school district boundaries, instead of the city of Newton only, because those ball fields, everything that the NRC was maintaining was utilized by everybody within the school district, and they didn't charge additional, like somebody that comes to the swimming pool that lives inside the city pays the same amount as somebody that's outside of the city but still in the school district.
And just another example, basically the facilities that we maintain and take care of for the PDC, we as a rec commission do not use any one of those facilities. Every one of those that we maintain are used by the school district. It's just an agreement we have with the school district that we maintain and take care of those facilities so the school district can use those facilities. I mean, this PBC, other than the pool, the rec commission has zero benefit. Zero, except for the pool.
So if all three entities approve this, what is the total mill increase the taxpayers will see?
0.4.
Your point two and rec commission's point two, because the city did not increase our mill levy, we just found it from our general fund.
Right.
As the superintendent suggested would be another option, so we did not change our mill levy.
And how does that work with the city when you're not raising your mill levy now, you don't project to do that for 2 years? Will you always have it built into your budget, or will you down the line maybe have to adjust that and do the 0.2 from the city side if it doesn't fit into your budget somehow?
It's more likely that we have another project come up along the way that we would no longer be able to substitute that amount of difference from the general fund. Right now, it's a budgeted expense going forward and will be for the term of the contract. But to your point, you know, cash basis budget law in Kansas, and we have to, every single year, we have to reallocate those funds to everything that we, or you all do, or we do, this is, you know, that is the reality of it. But for now, it was within the city's scope. We have done some payoff of debt over time, and we have the ability to absorb that increase without changing the mill levy.
And
Is that
see,
helpful?
and we don't have that flexibility where bonds go away, because we can't bond money. So all of our levy or our bond is basically operations. So we don't have that authority to our budget, our levies going away, like the city or even school district, if some debt's paid off. But, yeah, so.
Okay, so I guess I'm assuming the motion failed twice. So then I'm going to break it in pieces. Okay. So does anybody want to make a motion on extending the agreement?
What exactly, I guess I have some confusion now, what exactly would, I understand that it would not include the 0.8 moving to the 1.0, but I just want to make sure that whatever our motion is, it's on point, because we've already seen the hiccups with this from 2 years ago. I don't want to accidentally have a motion that includes something that we're not intending, and I know that sounds simple, but I want to be really careful what our language would be with this. So do we have something to reference that does not include a 0.2 increase? Or would that just be our motion that we would extend it as it has been in the past without an increase? Does that make sense?
It does, makes sense. And I can't answer that, we'd have to talk to an attorney or something like that to make sure that all the legal,
I don't have that.
Because I'm like you, I thought that what was passed was already passed, and we were, you know, there's nothing else we were together, so.
I'm absolutely in favor of moving forward and agreeing to extend it. I just want to make sure we do it the right way. Because I thought the previous board did it the right way 2 years ago. So I want to make double check that we are on point with what we're going to do with it.
Luke, why don't you make your motion, the original motion again?
There was no second.
Yeah.
I think she said she got a second.
Yeah.
I think that's
I would gladly do so. I move to approve the PBC interlocal agreement as presented,
Second?
and that includes the increase
Yes.
from 0.8 to 1 mil.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Okay.
All right, so they moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? And as I stated, I don't want to rush the mill, so I'd be happy to compromise and take it out of make an agreement somehow and pay the extra $40,000. Yeah, I guess we can.
So my only concern is that city's meeting tomorrow night to discuss this in their meeting. So I know I said I want to make sure we have, we dot our i's and cross our t's. So I don't want to say I'm good faith because we saw how that panned out last time. But I want the city to understand tomorrow night that we have every intention of extending this agreement, that we're not saying, no, we're not going to do it. So I wish.
No, it's 3-3. It was 3-3, so we failed.
So
we need to.
That would have been easier,
So if I understand what you're saying, Mallory, is that we need to make sure that the extension is fully X. This was not.
So we should approve what was approved in 2018 is what you're wanting to do.
I guess, I don't, it's very weird because I thought that was done.
I really think, I'll put stick my break those in here. We're gonna get John to draft this up and get with the city attorney. So we have different options.
Because we have no actual agreement. I want to make sure that it's just really clear to all parties, but our intention is to extend the agreement. We just don't have the language that I comfortably have right now.
Well, and I'll just say that I think it's very important to have our entities work together for these things. I see the importance of that, but I too am a little confused at the language, and now I have more questions with the document not being fully executed. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, but I do support what the PBC is trying to do.
Anything else? Okay, we will continue on.
Our people will get with your people.
Okay, next item is the approval of the gift request.
I move to approve the gift request as presented. We'd like to thank Strawbridge Studios for their gifts to Chisholm, Slate Creek, Sunset, and Newton High for their signing bonus donations, each of $750. Thank you to Idea Tech, to the district for audio meter devices, at a value of $850. We'd like to thank Sand Creek Festival, Newton Rotary, Lions Club, Edward Jones, and Kiwanis to their gift to Newton High School for donations to assist with the teacher appreciation lunch in the value of $600. We'd like to thank Mid-Kansas Co-op Association for their gift to Walton Rural Life Center for their donation of $500 to help repair the greenhouse. And thank you to CHS Incorporated also for their gift to Walton Rural Life Center at a value of $500 to help repair the greenhouse. Oh, sorry. And we'd also like to thank First Nazarene Church members for their gift to Northridge Elementary for sanitizing supplies in the value of $75. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? So voted. The high school early graduate request.
Got a pretty long list here. Part of that's due to the fact that we're 4x4, giving another class that would access, again, with the COVID situation. Caleb had some stuff he wanted to expand upon that.
I just wanted to clarify that they're not all new classes. We didn't just create a bunch of new classes. A lot of those were already in place. We're just officially getting approved through the board. Some are new, and they're not necessarily, they're just classes that we'd like to have available, especially when we get.
You're talking about kind of early graduate.
Oh, early graduate.
Yeah, graduate.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was, sorry.
Did you fall asleep back
Yes.
here?
That list is really big because 4x4 allows for more credit opportunity. So a lot of kids are getting more credits, especially with 0 hour attitude. Some kids are taking overload on top of the 4x4 opportunities. Also, there's a number of parents that in the past could have asked for early graduation that didn't, that are now asking because the opportunity to get their kid out of the COVID era a little quicker. So that's the reason the list is a little, sorry.
He'll answer that other question when we get two things down.
Oh, we don't need him to.
Yes, now we're good. Thanks, David.
I move to approve early graduation for Newton High School students who are on pace to meet the credit requirements.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? The hiring incentive program.
Dr. Decker will probably talk to you about this a little more than I, but as you guys all know, we're struggling with trying to find classified staff members, especially with transportation and food service. And so we thought this might be a way to where we could lure some of them in. Dr. Dexter, if you have anything you'd like to add, sir.
I would. I don't know if it's still, there it is.
It's a little small on the
It is. So of course, this is not for you to approve tonight, but to think about for our next meeting, so just some information in advance. But essentially, like the superintendent said, looking at providing some one-time cash incentive bonuses for new employees, or employees that are reassigned for specific areas that we're needing help with. To come up with this proposal, we did go ahead and engage a leadership group consisting of the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, Jane from Human Resources, as well as the department heads from the major departments here within the school district, all that would have some input in on how to go ahead and pull this off and why we want to do it. But it's pretty straightforward. It's essentially offering a $600 cash bonus to employees that are brought on, and it's going ahead and saying, okay, it's broken up into a $200 first-time payment and then a $400 payment that comes in after 6 months. And so that's kind of how we're breaking it up. So the intent is that we're encouraging the employee to stay on board. So we're hoping that there won't be a lot of just, oh, let me go drive the bus real quick and I get this bonus to take advantage of it. There's some things built in here for longevity, as well as something that we're kind of proud of is number 3, that is a $300 bonus that is provided to for referring someone to work for the school district in one of these capacities. It excludes the hiring managers, of course, but it does provide that incentive in there so that hopefully we can get our own employees out recruiting the best kinds of people that we want working here within the district. And that bonus is paid out after a certain period of time as well. I think 3 months of service, and then we go ahead and pay that out. You can see here a list of eligible positions, and there's not many that are not pretty much essential that we're looking to hire in, so there they all are. And as well as we added a piece for transportation that you may not know this, you may, is that one of the barriers seems to be that to be like a bus driver, you have to have a CDL license. Well, a person may not want to be a bus driver if they find out that they have to incur the cost of getting the CDL license, or as well as getting the physical or any of the other medical pieces that need to be in place for them to be hired full time. So we just had that discussion and said, hey, if we can remove that barrier, let's do it. Let's encourage the people to take on that occupation. So again, I will definitely take questions on it, but for now, this is just informational so that we can have a deeper discussion and put it to your vote at an upcoming meeting.
Any questions?
Yeah, is there any way, does this come out of like our COVID funds, is it, or is this going against the?
You budget, yes.
Okay.
Because right now we have a lot of unfilled positions. And we just aren't finding them.
Right, and Jane put some numbers for me earlier, and essentially, right now, if we were implemented today, we have 13 vacancies, so we have a price tag of about $7,800.
So, would we want to cap that at a certain point? I mean, if we have more vacancies beyond the 13 we have right now, I mean, I would assume we would still continue to use it, but at a certain point there, we got to know how much.
And
or whatnot.
I'm totally open to that, if that's what the board would like to do, if we'd like to move to figure out ways where we may be able to cap this or some time limit that's different. Right now, it runs through the school year, but maybe we say this runs for the next 4 months and see what happens.
My thought would be, let's let it run for a while and see where we're at. We'll probably get a feel for it. I mean, that's my thought.
So, Luke, I think you bring up a good point. So if you're, expecting 13 vacancies, $7,000 some dollars, could we do, if we get to 10,000, bring it back and just talk to us about it, see how it's going? Because I like what you're saying. I think it's a great thing to do, but I don't want someone, and I don't think they would, but you come in, you work for a few months, you get your incentive, and then the next one, and the next one. I don't want to encourage that. So I'm all for it, but I like Luke's point of, hey, let's kind of set a boundary to keep an eye on it.
I think we're getting some caps for, before it comes to next meeting.
The next item is the proposed new courses in NHS.
That was what I thought I was multitasking. Yeah, basically what I said before, we're just getting this officially approved. I don't know if that's been done in the past or not. We've added a few that are in there that are new that will be available to students to take. For the most part, it's already courses that we've offered in the past anyway, we're just officially getting it approved.
So I had it in as information because I thought you were just doing information.
You normally approve the courses, correct?
Yeah, we would
Yeah.
normally approve.
It was information tonight, approved next, but if you needed to.
Yeah, you can do it the next.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
They're already going, so.
Okay. It doesn't, okay. Revisit DOE goals.
Okay, this is kind of just kind of touching base a little bit on, I sent you guys a little information on some things that we had done before, or in my previous district in terms of attendance. Dr. Decker pulled up the Board of Education goals, and so just kind of wanted to talk about these a little. You guys all know what these goals are a little bit, and then I'm going to give you a little homework between now and the next board meeting. All right, so I've got a little sheet that I'm going to ask, but I want you to think about as you look at this, is are these three goal areas, are they the ones that you want to focus on specifically? And you've got about 4 or 5 questions per area in terms of are the goal areas the ones we should be focusing on, and how do you know? What data do you have that supports that? Whether it's anecdotal or otherwise, how do you know that's a data point that we should be looking at or a goal that we should be looking at? And then under each one of those, there's some action steps or strategies and then evidence of success. And then I also want you to reflect upon those 2 areas too, to see if those are the steps we should be taking, and if those are effective measures of what we say is important as it relates to those goals. I figured this would be a pretty long meeting tonight, so we're not going to have that conversation. I think yes, you're welcome. Bears aren't playing someone that's worried about getting home too early, but I do want you to think about this because what we're trying to do is really get the ship going in one direction as much as possible so that everyone is kind of thinking singularly about what we really want to accomplish for kids. And to me, it's not about facilities, it is about what we want to provide for our kids. So I will share each one of these individually with you. And so it'll have your name on the little file there. And what I plan to do is I'll give you until like the Wednesday before the next board meeting, if that's okay with you. Then I'll combine all of those things together so that you'll have it for the next board meeting. We can have a little bit longer discussion about where do we want to go from here. Because I don't really want this to only start and end at the Board of Education table. I think we really need to get our community involved in the goal setting and how we want to get there and what metrics we want to look at. So I just wanted to tell you, you got a little homework coming at you, but this should be a fun thing to do, not a working thing to do. It should be fun. So, and to get our community engaged. So that's all I have for you on that. Unless you have questions.
I haven't been in class for a really long time, so it's I feel like I'm a science teacher again in the classroom.
You did get into your teaching voice.
We did.
I get my teaching
you
voice.
really did.
We've got an English teacher in there too. We're going to have her make sure she checks all the grammar and all that other stuff. That's all I got for you.
Okay. Next items are the team reports and takes us down to board comments. Anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot going on out there. Tough decisions today. I appreciate the conversations and how we're able to do that. I have a lot of friends over there, so that was tough, but I also think we need to think about boundaries, and I appreciate you guys and how we work together and all the suggestions that we brought out. And I think we just need to fight for that middle ground and figure out who we want to be, where are our boundaries, and where do we want to go. And so I hope nobody got offended tonight, but I think we just scratched the surface of that. And moving forward, I'm looking forward to how we build this deal with our community and then make it better for the future and really get to understand it and not just frivolously run through it like I will have. Thank you for understanding my position on that. Appreciate it.
I would just echo your statements a little bit. I'm glad that we can have respectful conversation up here and disagree respectfully on certain points. And at the end of the day, we can still walk out and get along. And it's a great feeling to have a really solid, good team to work with. So I appreciate that. We don't always align when it comes to personal ideas and beliefs, but I feel like we share the same common goal, and that's to support our students, educate our students, and support our staff. So thank you. I enjoy working with you guys, and I'm glad that we're a great team.
I would just say thank you to our health staff that are just umbrella them all, because they're working really hard, and obviously things are a little crazy in the community, so appreciate all their hard work.
The only thing I wanted to kind of talk to you about, Jody, I don't think you did send out to everybody about the evaluation. So we'll work through this, but we're gonna go through the evaluation process. We're gonna do this pretty quickly here in the next month or so. For the superintendent. It's gonna be a different format. Gary Sechrist sent it to you, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we'll do a different format. I think if you wanna go ahead and send that, is it?
Yeah, did all of you receive a summary of the August 4 work session with Gary Sechrist with the goal setting? Or did you? Okay, all right. From that, he pulled together the main goals from that conversation and put that into a template for an evaluation instrument, which is completely different than the process used
If
before.
those of you that haven't gotten to do that in the past would be very happy that we're doing it this way. It's just, the whole way was torture. So if you want to
So we will- yeah, we will
send
use
that
that
out.
template, and evaluations due December 9, so.
And then what we might do is have you all fill those out, bring them to a board meeting, and then we'll sit in executive session. Talk about Fred.
After he just assigned us homework in his teacher room.
Wait a minute, yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You better get it done right too,
Oh,
now.
man. Flashbacks now.
All right, that's all I had. I'll make it.
I'm going to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor? Oh,